Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt on June 9th in the year of the plague 2020. I'm inside the Beltway, and I'm here for the rundown, my daily digest of what happened between the time you went to bed last night and you turned on the Hugh Hewitt Show this morning. The first story, the number one story in America, comes from the Wall Street Journal. Calls to cut funding for police grow in the wake of protests. Understand that in the space of 2 weeks, the attack on the police, the Democratic demand to defund the police and to prosecute the police and to abolish the police, and I mean abolish the police. That is the goal, the announced goal of Black Lives Matter, and it has not been repudiated by Democrats. That has become the number one issue in the country, along with who is better positioned, Donald Trump or the hapless Joe Biden, to lead the economic rebound, which is already underway, from the temporary and sharp recession, which began in February, caused by the COVID virus. We now know we had a recession. I think it's over. And I believe that the markets, even though they don't expect to go up today after a extraordinary rally of the past week, I do expect the economy will be vibrant, growing by leaps and bounds when we vote in November. And you're going to have to decide whether to shut it off and bring back in all those regulators, all those do-gooders, all those social justice warriors, all those people who don't know anything about signing the front of a paycheck, and put them in place of Donald Trump's team of aggressive growth conservatives. But back to police. The Wall Street Journal calls to cut funding for police grow in the wake of protest. A bill House Democrats unveiled Monday would make it easier to prosecute officers for misconduct. Believe it? The police are the enemy now in the Democratic Party. Second story, after protests from the New York Times, politicians reconsider police budgets and discipline. This is the New York Times effort to edge the Democrats away from defund the police, which is their slogan, and they can't get away from it. It is tattooed on the Democratic Party. To fund police, watch crime return, warns the opinion page editors of the Wall Street Journal. New York Times, Trump rebuffs protesters over systemic racism, calls police great people. That's cut story number 4. Number 5, Biden walks a cautious line as he opposes defunding the police. He hasn't opposed defunding the police. He put out a statement. We don't know what he thinks. We don't even know if he can think about this. We don't know if he's competent to come out and have a conversation about it. He was Mr. Police for many, many years. He was Mr. Tough on Crime, Joe Biden. Now at 78, he hides in his basement, doesn't come out and talk to anyone about the most pressing issue of the day, issues a statement that, not that far. Nobody believes that. If you elect Joe Biden, you're not really electing Joe Biden. You're electing a team of people who will bring back appeasement from the Obama years on national security and radical domestic policy led by AOC and the squad in the House. The Democratic Party has been captured by the hard left. Captured by the hard left. Understand, when you vote for Joe Biden, you're not getting Joe Biden as you recall him from 20 or 30 years ago. You're getting the 78-year-old who hides in his basement and can't get through one interview. But it's not just Joe Biden. Let's go find Senator Kamala Harris on the View yesterday with Meghan McCain, cut number 11.
I'm going to ask the same question the protesters asked him. Are you for defunding the police?
How are you defining defund the police?
Well, I'm not for anything remotely for that, so I would ask the protesters the same thing. But I assume I assume, and again, this is something that is new to me, I assume it's removing police, and as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar said, bringing in a whole new way of governing and a law and order into a community. And my understanding, again, this is something that has just come into my understanding recently, is that you would not have police officers like this Minneapolis City Councilwoman said, that I would be a place of privilege if someone broke into my home and I wanted to call the police.
So, again, we need to reimagine how we are achieving public safety in America.
Stop. Can we go back to the beginning of that? This is a pretty straightforward question. This is Senator Kamala Harris. She is likely to be the Democratic running mate of Joe Biden. That means she's likely to be the presidential candidate in 2028. As Joe is not going to make it 4 years able in the public eye to persuade people that he can be president if he were to win. So cut number 11, she gets asked a straightforward question.
I'm going to ask the same question the protesters asked him. Are you for defunding the police?
How are you defining defund the police?
Stop.
Well, I'm not.
What do you mean, how are you defining defund the police? Defund the police is a very self-evident statement. It means take away the money that we previously gave to the police department. That she will not answer recognizes that the Democratic Party is in a quandary. Their left edge wants to defund the police. Even though Muriel Bowser, the D.C. mayor who painted defund the police, Black Lives Matter equal defund the police, she painted it in giant letters in front of the White House, in yellow letters in front of the White House so it could be seen from the sky. Muriel Bowser at a press conference yesterday, cut number 12.
What's the plan for how long you're going to keep the Black Lives Matter mural on 16th Street?
Well, we've commissioned the artwork. We renamed the plaza, and I'm thankful to the council for codifying that renaming to Black Lives Matter Plaza. We think it's going to have a central place, not in just D.C. history, but in American history, and we should be proud of it.
Does the plan to just keep it there for years?
We haven't discussed how long it's going to stay there, but it, like all of our other public art, it stays. And so we will continue to talk about ways to make that a part of the fabric of DC. And we also want to involve our downtown district, involved the neighbors to the mural, and we will do that.
What about your plans for the part that was added that says defund police?
Well, it's not a part of the mural. It wasn't part of the commission, but we recognize it as expression, and especially right now, acknowledging and affirming expression is important to this discussion that we have to have as a community.
I believe defund the police is an absolute cry for anarchy in the United States. It is a radical left proposition. But I am not surprised because Black Lives Matter is run by radicals. Meanwhile, Karen Bass at the Democratic Presser says this, cut number 13, Congresswoman Bass.
Well, I can't imagine that happening in a federal way, but let me just tell you that part of that cry is a desire for there to be significant higher investment in communities. Looking at why police are
So she doesn't want to answer whether or not she supports defunding the police. Nancy Pelosi steps in to help her, cut number 14.
I think the Congresswoman answered your question very clearly. But the fact is that we do have a great deal of legislation coming down the pike that addresses some of the concerns of our communities across the country.
Pelosi, stop. She's caught with it, too. She knows it's a disaster. The Democrats have now identified with a hard left to fund the police, prosecute the police position. Cory Booker understands what this means. He went through his safe space on MSNBC yesterday. Andrea Mitchell's a fine journalist, but it's still where Cory Booker only goes. Here's what he had to say to her about defunding the police. Cut number 15.
Anytime you hear a slogan being articulated by activists who are seeking an end that could probably inspire a lot of common folks, you can be sure that Donald Trump is going to try to weaponize that slogan. He tried to weaponize Black Lives Matter. He tried to weaponize a Green New Deal. And he's trying to weaponize these. But again, listen to the activists, the spirit of what they're calling.
Cory Booker, I'm not weaponizing anything. I'm actually listening to exactly what people on your party want. You want the Green New Deal for $14 trillion or $40 trillion or whatever ridiculous amount of money it is. You want to defund the police. You want to prosecute the police. I'm not weaponizing anything. This is Lisa Bender, Minneapolis City Council President, on last night with Chris Cuomo, who, to his credit, asked the tough question, cut number 16.
When you say you see someday being police-free, that sounds aspirational in terms of a utopian concept where nobody's committing any crime. Because as long as these communities are being preyed upon, both from within and without, there's going to have to be good men and women willing to step up to keep people safe.
I think the idea of having a police-free future is very aspirational, and I am willing to stand with community members who are asking us to think of that as the goal, because so many folks in our community have seen us work on reform.
Are you really going to turn the country over to aspirational forms-driven Democrats? Defund the police, prosecute the police. That's the number one story of the day. It's tattooed on the Democratic Party. It is embraced by Joe Biden and everybody there to prosecute the police. It is their central theme going into the elections. Don't forget it. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Stay tuned.